All right, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join Karina and myself as we talk about a case study with hyperlocal activity and activation with DCO. My name is Don Sklenka, and I lead our DCO solutions practice in the Dentsu side. And I'll let Karina introduce herself.
Sure. I'm Karina Ost. I'm the Director of Marketing Strategy for Albertsons companies, and have been working very closely with Don on a lot of these cool initiatives. So happy to share.
So, before we get into the absolute details of why we're here today, I do want to set the stage a little bit for our listeners when it comes to Albertsons and Albertsons business model pre-COVID and Albertsons business model in the digital world and your desire to be hyper local. So, at what point did Albertsons feel this need to shift, from in a marketing perspective, from that traditional digital marketing approach to what is more of a hyper local activation approach?
Yeah. So, for Albertsons companies, for our kind of tagline and our motto is really locally great, nationally strong. And so it's always the kind of combination of making sure that whatever we do in marketing has the strength of, the right partners that we could get that scale, but it also needs to be hyper relevant to people. So I think, you had kind of mentioned different things around the COVID time, but what kind of changed there was we had offerings, we had delivery, we had drive up and go, but maybe not, all of our stores were using it, or it wasn't that much of a consumer demand. And as consumers started to change their habits, we needed to make sure that Karina, in NorCal, see that my local Safeway has both delivery and drive up and go. So we needed to make sure that we were hitting people with the right message.
And so in comes DCO. So DCO, Dynamic Creative Optimization, for those that don't know the acronym. At the end of the day, DCO is a tool that enables personalization, it enables relevancy, it enables both of those at scale across channel. And so, how did you see DCO as that tool fitting in and supporting that strategy of Albertsons, which is to become more hyper local?
Yeah. So I think, the big thing here was at that moment, when COVID hit. And that was also around the time that both Merkel started with Albertsons. It's also when I personally started with Albertsons. So it was just this opportunity for huge growth. And it was really around, how we can accelerate on the digital side and have, in place the right solution.
So, we're thinking about a linear timeline here. So, 2019, everything's going great. We're talking about this transformation, and then in comes COVID. And now I don't want to painfully go through how that affected everyone, including everyone on this call. But it was a reality, and it was a crazy time. But we're curious, how did COVID actually accelerate the importance or accelerate the needs for that digital hyperlocalization that wasn't there even when you wanted to do it, but it wasn't like it didn't accelerate the need to do that. And then it came in and okay, now it became a reality. So talk a little bit about how that accelerated it.
Yeah, no, and I think you're exactly right. We can't be blind to that. And again, that kind of time when we kind of started our relationship working together, I really started at Albertsons was at that exact moment. I remember prior, I was at an agency, focusing on CPGs, and I kept hearing, "Hey, is anyone looking what's happening in grocery right now? Like what we expected them to do in years, they have now done in 6 weeks." And I just remember thinking, I want to be a part of that. So I think we kind of came in at this time where, after that initial hit of, empty cupboards and all of that, it was really, hey, people are changing the way they shop. And exactly like I was saying, we need to figure out how we can message people and say, this is what's now available in your store. And things were changing so rapidly. We were adding on drive up and go to new stores, letting people know how to use delivery, incentivizing them to use
Mm.
it, kind of opening up this whole world where, it wasn't just third party, it was something that you can do direct, and we needed to let people know. So in order to have all of those different messaging combinations, and Don, what it's like to work with us, and our series of different banners and logos. And so you need to make sure that we had all of those pieces in
And that's
line.
such a critical piece that I think often gets lost on this is it's one thing to transition and transform into an objective to be hyper local, but you also have to educate consumers that also haven't done this ever. And so, there's two aspects of it. It's like getting the solution in place and having it built and going out and go, okay, it's done. But then there's the other challenge, which is also education and, okay, getting someone exposed to this new service. That's great. Now, how do we actually allow them to know how well this can help their daily life and that sort of thing? So, that leads us into what was then the crescendo with the vaccine rollout. And prior to that, really was pharmacies. Now, Albertsons has a significant amount of stores nationwide, but not every store has a pharmacy. Again, pre the vaccine rollout, what were some of the challenges that those pharmacies were having in this space in general? And again, before like that really became a true global initiative.
Yeah. So again, I think we kind of pointed how it was dire and everyone was trying to figure out solutions fast and the right partners fast and all of that piece. There was that glimmer of hope when we knew that the vaccines were approved and not only that, but our pharmacies were approved to start administering them. So then to your exact point of, okay, suddenly this education piece. First, it was education of all the different service lines we offer. And then it
Mm.
became the education of, and again, we're going down memory lane, but each state had kind of their own jurisdiction. There was different regulations. First, it was just first line responders, then over certain age limits. And we all had to kind of have a plan in place and have the right partners in place and then kind of hurry up and wait, and then there would be a press conference on the news and we'd say, okay, now we could go live with 50 plus, or now this is what's happening at this state. So it really shifted. And then to your exact point, the other nuance beyond all of our locations and the different store names and making sure that's accurate then became making sure that we're only showing those stores that have pharmacies and we're letting people know that they're available and we have them.
And I think those nuances that's where it would differ from a typical, get your flu shot campaign. Is that an accurate statement or?
That's exactly right. I think for the flu, people have always kind of been aware that that's something they can do at their local grocery store, or that's something that they do every year. The level of education there is much lower. This was really, when can I do it? How can I do it? What's available? Um, and making sure that we were an education resource and that we were up to all of the changing kind of government regulations and all of those news, and that we were informing it all of our customers.
And now if we kind of repaint this picture, so a need to go hyper local, COVID happens, we build a solution that allows for hyper local store promotions and service promotions that didn't exist before, and education in that. And then we had to work through this net new challenge, which is how do we achieve awareness for a vaccine that was truly on a different, like my neighbor would have a different opportunity, that sort of thing. So that's where DCO as a technology really started to spread its wings. And so some of the things that we were able to do is tap into pharmacy feeds and tap into user locations. So would this have, I mean, it's a rather softball type question, but I want to make sure it's clear. Like, would this have been possible without DCO in place?
I don't think so. In terms of, again, there's so many different barriers here of education, and we need to make sure at the very baseline that we're serving the right people the relevant message, that they know exactly what their neighborhood pharmacy has to offer and where the location is, and that they're seeing the exact right logo for their store and the correct hours and how to make an appointment, and all those things need to be right. So I think at the bare minimum we needed that. We needed a tool that was able to do that.
And for some of the viewers here, just imagine we all are probably pretty familiar with legal disclaimers. Just imagine that now kind of on steroids. It's that times 50 times situations, an exponential variable that has to be solved and resolved before we speak to consumers. So Karina, on the Albertsons side, what were, I might have just given one away, but what were some of the bigger challenges from a business perspective or from a digital perspective in making the solution a reality of delivering messaging for users when it came to a hyperlocal activation?
So, um, great question. I think, making sure that we had the right partners in place. So I think we really kind of hit on DCO, but I think that there were some other things that we really kind of tried to think about, which was, how can we get the message across? How can we partner with different partners. So, one example here is we had worked with Nextdoor and kind of in partnership with both Nextdoor and Moderna on creating a vaccine map. So basically you could type in here's an example. You could type in your location and see, exactly which pharmacy near you, where you can get your vaccine. Another example that we partnered with Google on was a Google chatbot, which is basically a way for, we're not just putting a message and an ad out there, we're letting people ask questions and kind of interact with this, because this wasn't something that people were used to. This was this was all of our first pandemic, and we needed to make sure that we had the right answers, and not only was our targeting correct, but that we can provide really solutions and information for people.
And from that solution perspective, without Google gave us the scale to
That's
be
right.
able to speak to all of these individuals across the country, and then DCO gave us the technology to activate, and then that worked together against the strategy and the business problem, which was how do we deliver messaging. And I feel like we touch on this a little bit at the beginning of this conversation, but that education piece and this is the COVID vaccine awareness program. I really feel like it evolved from strictly giving messaging to consumers, hey, go buy our product, to helping consumers understand how they can live a better life, or how they had options when it came to vaccinations and what they were able to do. So speak to a little bit about how, like the thought process kind of evolved or shifted, and or how that might shift the way that we think about advertising today versus buy our product and maybe we'd be more helpful, and that's a better way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. The backbone was really Google and making sure that we had, the right messaging, we got the targeting right, we got the message right. We explained, hey, if you're 50 years or older, or if you know, right now we're only doing appointments that you have to book online, to okay, hey guys, we now have enough supply, walk-ins are available, and that kind of ever-changing shift, as well as thinking of partners that could get us, you know what's the new cool thing. Another thing we did is we worked with influencers. I remember seeing, our government also worked with influencers on letting people know about the vaccine, because it was a really helpful way to have personal storytelling. This was all of our first times. So that was another kind of piece that we did. So we really kind of had to go above and beyond. And to your point, for pharmacy, it was really so much previously in our marketing was focused on things like flu. And, it was sort of a little set it and forget it. And this kind of got us the opportunity to really think more creatively. And,
Mm.
now we're thinking of things like, for pharmacy, around pet prescriptions. And can we use influencers here and let people know that there's, ways besides maybe your vet to get your pet prescription filled. And so there's these kind of different opportunities, but I think we were all kind of in the opportunity. We all had to be forced to be really nimble, really creative, and really, build our marketing skill set.
And I think, people that are watching this are saying, okay, this sounds great, but what were the results? And I think there's two sides of a results conversation. I think there's the quantitative results, which we'll, kind of pull up here, but then there's also the qualitative results. And I think, you just mentioned, the ability to take this learning and this structure and this framework and how we went to market and the challenges and apply that to other parts of the business to help consumers, to help people along their journey. That is a very immeasurable a result that has significant ramifications across your business, across your industry. So I'd like to give you the opportunity, to again talk about the results as you saw them, quantitative, qualitative, in setting up a solution such as this, and how it was perceived, and what you were able to do going forward with it.
Sure. So, I think when any kind of time we run digital marketing, there's things like click through rate, which are kind of going to be the gold standard that we're going to really look through here. Again, obviously, because so many people are trying to figure out about what the vaccine was and how it worked and how availability worked and all of those things, I think we kind of expected that to be a high number. So, that was, went above benchmark. It was really strong there. But then I think we had to then look at the other side, and we ran kind of consumer surveys and stuff like that
Mm.
around really how useful was it? Because I think that bar changed. It was, beyond just, hey, let me get you to the next page and then you can fill out, a document and make an appointment, to, hey, now you guys can walk in. Now it's available. Another kind of evolution of this was, after, the latest booster, you can do that at the same time as your flu shot, and letting people know those pieces and kind of shifting it a little bit more. And as, more doses were available, people had a better understanding. So, maybe we had to do less education, but then
Mm.
more awareness. So it's really evolved, but it's also shifted how we look at things. But I think those kind of different metrics, like things like usefulness, I think we're going to see more and more in marketing.
And so, to start to wrap this all together, at the beginning of this, there was obviously the need to be hyper local, and then all of this stuff happened in quotes. And now, once it has been completed, I'm curious, and maybe others are as well, is how has that also altered or changed even the vision of what hyper local means, or could mean to Albertsons, based on, okay, we, in 2019 and 2020 we want to go hyper local, and then we go through all of this, and now truly, now has it changed or evolved your next level way of thinking about hyper locality and activation using data and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Again, if I go down to, really our tagline, it's how, we will always need the national kind of strength, the national kind of partners getting us to that scale. But we can never forget that we need to really match exactly what's going on in the store and be relevant to our customers. Um, I think other people at times, we kind of started talking about delivery lines, and if someone wants to shop in store, or drive up and go, or delivery, and letting people know that they can do all these things. I think what we have now seen is people have different ways that they want to shop, and that might change. It's rainy out here right now, so I'd rather do delivery, and letting people know. But again, we're not going to we're not going to go down and learn so much from personalization and hyper local to then scale back and say, okay, here everyone gets a one wish, one blanket kind of solution.
Right.
So I think it accelerated, but I think now we're starting to be more and more creative and really think of different ways that we can be as relevant and as helpful to our customers as possible.
And so, really to completely wrap this up, one of the hidden underlying parts of what made this a success, at least in our view, is having a company that is agile and flexible and nimble. I know those are cliche words, but it truly required it. It required the ability to see the forest through the trees. And although there might be some hiccups at the beginning, that we know that at the end, this is what we want to achieve. And, we're not trying to, kind of micromanage specific instances, and the ability to be that flexible. would, if that wasn't there, and if everything was a very rigid process along the way, we wouldn't have been able to make it work, because we would have been stuck in, legal reviews, and stuck in, template production, or stuck in how do we make this feed absolutely perfect. So, again, from our perspective, a bigger learning, if you want to call it that, is how do we continue to be more flexible and agile in this kind of a new world thinking, and when it comes to digital. So I want to thank you for that agility, because again, as a partner, it's so refreshing. And again, allow you the opportunity to talk about your team, and again, thank everyone for showing up here.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. And I agree. I think we've kind of been through, it's like marathon training. And we really flexed these muscles of, nimbleness. And now, there's definitely a whole bunch of different opportunities and different kind of partners that can help along the way. And Merkel's been a great partner for us on this.
Well, thanks a lot. And thanks again, everyone, for taking 20 minutes out of your day. I hope that this was informative.
Thank you.